everyone. Thank you for having me. It's hard to imagine that anybody takes a real interest. To me, it was just my family, but here we go. My parents, Paul and Ulla Nielsen, they immigrated here to Canada in 1951 from Denmark, along with their 3-year-old son, my brother. They arrived by ship in Halifax, was their first point of entry into Canada. And from Halifax, they decided to make their journey west. But along the way, they stopped in many places. I think the first place they stopped was Montreal, and they stayed there for some time where they didn't speak English at all. And they met an elderly man on a park bench who offered to buy my brother an ice cream cone. And he also helped them find a place to stay and helped my dad to find work. Mm-hmm. So my dad's first job in Canada was, I'm not exactly sure what he did, but it was in a casino, Bellevue Casino in Montreal. I don't think they were there that long. So they met another immigrant, and together they had a car. I guess they rented a car, and they drove west, stopping in Banff. I guess that was the first place they stopped after Montreal. They stopped in Banff, and there's quite a story there because they couldn't speak or read any English whatsoever. And my dad was quite taken with the bears in the park. So he got out of the car. And he was really enamored with these 2 little cubs. And they came up to him and they put their little paws in his belt. And he thought this was wonderful. And so he was feeding them bits. But he ran out of food. And when he ran out of the food, he went to take the little paws and put them down on the ground. But Mom saw that as an aggression towards her babies and reared up and swiped him right across the face and across the top of his head. So he was not in good condition, but he survived, obviously. He was taken to hospital immediately, and all the physicians there said the bear didn't mean to do you any harm. She was just warning you. If she had meant to do you honest harm, you wouldn't be here today. So from there, they said, that's it. Okay, so they kept coming west. And they stayed in Vancouver for a time. My dad actually found work at the Hotel Vancouver. And he was working there for a time. And then they thought they'd try and go north a bit. So they went up to Prince Rupert, but they didn't like it there at all. So they came back down. And then my dad started working at the Harrison Hot Springs Resort. He worked there for quite a while, actually, before they finally decided they wanted to come over to the island and see what it was like. And they did, and of course, the rest is history. They loved it here and decided to stay. So they stayed, and in that time, my dad worked for so many different places. He worked, oh my gosh, I don't know if any of you remember, there was quite a well-known cafe downtown called the Poodle Dog. Okay, well, he worked there. He started the dining room at the Imperial Hotel, also at the Glen Shiel Hotel. And he worked at the Gorgevale Golf Club in the restaurant there. But when he first came to Victoria, the first thing he did before he got these other jobs, first thing he did was sell Fuller Brush. I don't know if any of you remember Fuller Brush, salesman coming to your door. Well, my dad did that, and he didn't speak very good English, and he would take my mom in the car with him and for some help, and he went up to one place with a fence, and it had a big sign on it that said, "Beware of ram." And he came back to the car, and he said, "What is a ram?" And she says, "I don't know, just go. I don't know what it is, just go." And so he did. Well, that ram chased him right through that fence, boy. He was lucky. So he's had a couple of close calls, but he didn't last very long doing that. He wanted to get back to his chefing and whatnot, so he did. And then probably the most prominent job he landed was with the King Arthur's restaurant. I don't know if you remember that on Blanchard Street. It then became, I think, an insurance company after that. But he worked there for many years, and you know, good friends with the owners and all the rest. And then Mrs. Lougheed, who owned the King Arthur's, she secured the contract for the members' dining room in the Parliament buildings. And so my dad chefed up there. Then King Arthur's closed down, and my dad managed to get the contract on his own for the Parliament buildings. So he did that. My mom worked in the dining room hostessing, and later I came to work there. I grew up on Prospect Lake. I moved out to I was born in 1954, and at the time my family was living in Esquimalt. And we very shortly thereafter, I think I was 3 when we first moved to Prospect Lake. And we lived across from, I don't know if any of you remember the Sanford family? Yes. Yeah, we lived across from them. And then when I was 6 years old, my mom and dad bought the house on Goward Road, and that was the house I stayed in until I got married and left. So I grew up on the lake my entire life, really. So anyway, I went to Prospect Lake School. I originally went to the old original Prospect Lake. It was across from what is now Mosey's. It was a corner store. It was there. I think I only went to grade 1 or 2 there, I think. I actually went to kindergarten here in this building, right here. Because at that time, kindergarten was not a mandatory part of the curriculum. And so it was voluntary, and I came here for kindergarten. Then we moved down. I moved down to the new, what is now the new Prospect Lake, but it went from grade 1 to grade 7. So I was there for 7 years, and when I went into grade 8, I went into Mount Newton, which is also gone now. And, you know, we had so many people lived around the lake, and we had so many friends, did so many things. But when they built Prospect Lake, there was just too many kids for it all. So they split the kids. They split us kids. The ones that lived in Prospect Lake area went to Prospect Lake, and the ones that lived a little further up or closer in this area went to Beaver Lake. So anyway, I did the grade 8 at Mount Newton, and then I decided to make the jump I went downtown to St. Anne's Academy and finished the rest of my schooling there. And during that time, my mom and dad were still working at the members' dining room, and of course it was only during when Parliament was sitting. And so when it wasn't, my dad took a job with Alberta Meat as a meat cutter in the interim. And I would leave school at the end of the day, and I would walk to the Parliament buildings, and there was this really cool little back staircase that you could get inside the Parliament buildings, that just for, I guess, the people that worked there. And I would go up there and up to the dining room, and I would work in the kitchen there, you know, from, oh gosh, sometimes it would be 3 o'clock in the morning before they would recess, and, you know, and I'd go home and get back up to school early in the morning the next day, you know. So anyway, it was a good time. It was a really good time. So I finished that. Growing up on the lake was wonderful. It was a great childhood. I know one of the questions was, you know, what's one of the dumbest things you've done? Well, pretty much everything we did was dumb. You know, I mean, when you think about it, I don't know how any of us really survived. You know, I was probably only 6 or 7 years old, and I was swimming across the lake to my friend's house. She lived, my best friend at the time, the Schultzes. I don't know if you remember the Schultzes on Esteline. Yeah. Well, Barbara was a really good friend, And so I would just jump in the lake and I'd swim across. I mean, the thought of it now horrifies me. I would never let my grandchild or anything, no floaties, no life vests, no nothing, just swam across, you know. And coming down hills on roads, I'm sure you all know, with the strap-on roller skates and no helmets, one-legged scooters, zooming down hills, and yeah, you'd crash, and you'd have lots of skinned knees and chins and foreheads and you name it. So yeah, I don't know. I think pretty much all of it was dumb, when you think of it now. Oh boy. But yeah, there were so many, really lots of people. There were people that lived beside us, the Woodfords, and I was really good friends with the girl from there, and across from us was the Steeles. I don't know if you remember that name at all. Stephanie Steele went on to become quite a prominent artist. She took lessons from Stephen Lowe, the watercolorist. He had a gallery downtown, what is now down by the conference center. He did have a gallery. I don't think so. I think he's passed, and I don't know whatever happened to her, because they did move. I'm not sure what happened to them, but we were all good friends, and you just met with your bikes and off you'd go. It's not like it is today. It has to be such organized and prearranged play dates and whatnot. So so most of my growing up was spent on the lake, and then there's a little lake, or a little bridge down on Goward Road, right by the park, what is now Whitehead Park. And I spent hours and hours under that bridge fishing for crayfish and bringing all the crayfish home, and we would eat them, So yeah, it was good. It was really good. It was a simple time, and it was good. I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think back then there was so much more ice and snow in the winter than I remember now. I have a picture here of what outside of my parents' house on Goward. I don't know if you can see it, but it's there's a lot of snow and a lot of ice, and the lake would freeze over. But at times we didn't know if it was safe to skate on, So one year, Jack Whitehead, I'm sure you remember his name. Yeah, Jack Whitehead took his old car, and he brought it down to the boat launch area that is on Echo Drive, or just off there, and a rope was tied to it, and the rope was brought across to the other side of the lake, and the car was towed across, and the theory being that if the car could withstand it, then the ice could withstand us skating on it. So we actually brought a car across the lake to see, and it did, so we were okay to go skating, Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Oh gosh, I don't know what else I've got to tell you here. Let's see, what did I do? Gosh, I don't know. One of your questions too was a favorite teacher. That's hard to say. I didn't have a lot of favorite teachers. I really didn't have a lot of favorite teachers, but there was one teacher. He was the principal at Prospect Lake School. His name was Graham Rice, and he was a wonderful man. He really was. He genuinely cared for the kids. He had fun with us kids. He was just a really nice man, and that I know he's not alive any longer, but I think he stuck in my head because I could realize that some teachers were actually really nice. Yeah, and I mean I don't know. I didn't have a lot of teachers that I really liked a lot, so I can't really go on about that. But he was one. He was wonderful. There was a couple of my elementary school teachers that I really liked, and they too were wonderful people. There was a Mrs. Shaw and a Mrs. Berube. They were great, really good. They were good to us kids. I don't know, I think it was the time in our lives where we had, we had more authoritarian type teachers than we had a lot that really nurtured. And, but those three were nurturers for sure. So anyway, my mom and dad then, in 1971, they bought the cock pheasant. They bought it from Grace Sowden, who lived directly across here in the house, right across from the church here. And at the time, Grace Sowden was running it strictly as a tea and luncheon place. She would literally only serve one thing for lunch, like a cold meat plate or something, and she had teas. And so my mom and dad decided to take the leap and buy it from her, and they bought it. And for a while, they did only do that. They only served teas and lunches and things like that. And then they decided to branch out that they would serve dinner as well. And it became really popular. I worked there as well when I think it was before I could drive, I think. Anyway, I worked there as a teenager. And they got the contract for all the buses that went out to Butchert Gardens. So all the tour buses that went out to Butchert Gardens would pull into the Pheasant, and we would have a very short amount of time in which we had to get everybody in, serve everybody, and get everybody out. And it was usually around 100 or so people, more, sometimes more. And I don't know what the time was. It was like about 45 minutes we had or something to get them all fed and out the door again. I guess the tour companies were on a time restraint. So, and that was really lucrative because we got so many, every weekend, we got so many bus loads of people in. And then my mom and dad decided that they wanted to start making dinners and things, and my dad devised a menu. Probably, if any of you have been there or were there, can remember the menu. And I kept one of these because I just find it a riot, that you can get a clubhouse sandwich for $1.85. Can you imagine? Or a half a roast chicken for $4.95. You can't even get a wing these days for that, I don't think. And my dad would serve salmon and scallops and steaks and things. Now the salmon was pretty much all that he caught. I don't think he ever bought salmon. He would go out in the morning. He was a huge fisherman, and he would go out in the morning and he'd catch the salmon for the restaurant for that night. I don't think, I know you're not allowed to do that today. I'm not sure that he was then, but apparently my brother reminded me that he actually bought a commercial fisher's license, and at that time they were only $1. And so I think he was legally allowed to do it. I like to think he was. But we had a lot of good times in that restaurant. My mom did all the baking for the teas. She made all the preserves, jams, whatnot, for the teas. And it was really family oriented. I had my wedding reception there. I was married in that church, but I had my wedding reception at my parents' restaurant. There are a couple of funny stories, that, as with all places of work, I think, that happened. One that I'm actually extremely proud of my dad for, and my brother reminded me of this one. We had a lot of tourists come to the restaurant, and there was a couple that had come up from the States, and my mom went to their table, and the gentleman said to her, "I see you have salt and pepper here." And she didn't know what he was talking about. She says, "Well, of course we have salt and pepper. It's on every table." And he said, "No, you have salt and pepper." And he made an indication with his head. And the table over from them had a mixed race couple sitting, having dinner. My mom got upset my dad, or my mom went into the kitchen and told him what had happened, and my dad came out and he told them to leave the restaurant and never come back. I'm extremely proud of him for that. So, yeah, so it was something I had forgotten. But there's another funnier story. My mom had to come out to the dining room at one time, and she said, "Everybody, please be very careful where you step. Somebody's lost their teeth." and they had to look for, and they found them. This person had coughed, and apparently the teeth went flying and landed under another table. So they did find them, thankfully, for this person. But it's kind of funny, I thought. Oh gosh. Working there was good tips because we got a lot of tourists. So it was always really good tips. It was nice. You know, those were the days where you made, I don't know, I think I made $1.75 an hour or something like that. It was, you know, and so when you got these tips, it was really something. We'd split between us, us gals that were working in the dining room. We'd split it, and it was just so great to get. So yeah, it was fun. You know, it was hard work though. My dad, he ended up suffering for it, and he had his first heart attack at the restaurant, and I was the only one there with him at the time. He insisted on driving himself to the hospital. What am I going to do at 15? Nothing I could do, you know. So he had his first attack, and he took a little bit of time off work, and you know, the doctors said the same old thing, you know, watch your diet, do your exercise, lose the weight, blah, 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 all these typical things. And he went back to work, and it wasn't too long after he had a second heart attack. And his cardiologist at the time then said, "This is enough. Your third one, you won't survive a third one." And he had a third one, and he didn't survive. So he passed away relatively young. He was only 63. I was just 29 at the time. My children were very young. My son was only, I think, 8 months old. And I really, that's the one regret I have, because my son loves to cook and he loves to fish. So it would have been so good for my dad to have known him. That's kind of a sad regret I have, but you know, you can't change what happens, right? So, anyway, then my mom, after they sold the restaurant in 1977, and we all decided to go back to Denmark as, you know, sort of a celebration of this, of having the time, went back and visited our family there. So that was a really nice vacation that we had, and when we came back, my dad just spent his days fishing. That's all he did. He just fished and swam in the summer. That was it. You know, he loved his fishing. But my mom continued to work. She went to work for Frank's, I think it was called Frank's Restaurant out on Keating. She worked there until my dad passed away, and then she ended up staying, after he passed away, she stayed in their house on Goward Road until she passed away 12 years ago now, I guess. She stayed there the whole time. She passed away at the age of 84. She was fiercely independent. There was no way you were going to move her out of that house. So when I came to empty that house out, I swear she had the first cottage cheese container ever made. You know, she just, you know, you come from the background of war, and of course they lived in an occupied country during the war, and you just didn't throw things out. You just didn't. And so that was sort of their bit of life story. I don't work in the restaurant industry. I stopped working after they sold the restaurant. I graduated high school, and I went into, I got an office job working for an insurance company downtown, and went to a different one after a couple of years, and then I finally got a job within the provincial government. I was the office manager for the Victoria Probation Office with Corrections, BC. So that's sort of where I ended up, and I graduated I retired about 12 years ago, and now I spend my time with my grandkids, going to the gym, I do some volunteer work, and that's sort of my life. That's where I'm at. I don't think there's much more to tell. I mean, well, actually I could say that the part of the summers that was fun down at Prospect Lake as well, at the time, it's really a shame that the municipalities don't do this anymore, but at what is now Whitehead Park, they used to have summer programs. The municipality would put on summer programs for kids. And oh, you had so much fun. You'd go in the morning, I just walked down there, and I think it went to like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They would take you swimming, or they would take you for some sort of adventure. But there was all kinds of artwork you could do and games you could play, and there were stories that were told. It was so much fun. And you could just go if you wanted. If you didn't want to go, you didn't have to go, or you know, you could leave partway through. It was really, really fun, and I really enjoyed that. That was, it's a shame that they stopped it, I guess. Like so many things, they stopped because of money and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, that's...
Will you entertain questions from the floor?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions for Dale?
Do you know who your parents sold the company?
Yes, they sold it to, his name was Bill Williams and Tim, and I can't remember, I'm sorry, I don't remember Tim's last name, but he married Arlene Oldfield.
Oh.
Yes, so...
Yes,
yeah, I just don't remember his name. And they did, they sold it to them, and then I think there was that common restriction that's put on a lot of commercial sales where you can't operate something with the same name within a 5-mile radius or something like that. And so they renamed it the hunting horn, I think it was. There was it turned into the golden pheasant at one point, and that might have been what they did. I'm kind of fuzzy on that. And then there was the hunting horn, and then later it became the roadside grill. And I think that was owned by the same person that owns El Rancho, and he lives on Prospect Lake Road, just up from the park. Actually right across the street from my brother. And that was the owners of El Rancho, and I think, I could be wrong, but I know they bought it, and I think that they turned it into the roadside grill. And then I don't know how well any of them really did on any of that, I'm not sure. I did go to the roadside grill. It was quite nostalgic going back, you know, having my wedding reception there, but yeah, and of course we all know now it's Mac Renovations. So yeah, it's no longer a restaurant, but it was successful in the time that they had it. So they would have had it about 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, Charlotte worked there.
Did Charlotte work there too?
Yeah, she worked for Bill.
Oh, okay.
And the Lanes also were involved.
Yeah.
Barbara and
Oh gosh.
the two sisters.
There was a Floss Lane.
Yeah, Barbara Shelley and
Herbie's
Lane.
he was the oldest.
Yeah.
And then Barbie married Bill, and they moved out to like Parkville or somewhere out there, and now Bill's passed away.
But they had trouble because Barb's dad used to go in there after hours and then expect these young Charlotte, who was only 15 at the time, to serve all the family members, and you know, they'd have steak and all kinds of stuff. So unfortunately, a lot of it was, all the money went out the window with the family.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the same Lane family. There was a Lane family that lived on Prospect Lake. All I remember is the mother's name was Flossie. No, not the same family?
No.
Okay.
They lived right across from the Parkland Road.
Oh, okay.
They did, yeah.
Okay.
But originally, when I was born, I think Barb's dad was only 14 or something at the time. They lived on Starry Night, and they had the farm on Starry
Oh,
Night.
right.
And then they moved from there when Frank and Eileen got married, they moved over across from the, what is it, the market, the barn or whatever?
Yeah.
The Red Barn?
Yeah.
Okay.
And now Frank died on the 4th of January this year, and Eileen is still living in Brentwood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's places like that that affected everybody, you know, because all our kids or all ourselves worked in these places, these
Yeah.
family.
Well, I know
businesses.
my mom and dad really liked hiring the younger people, just because I really, honestly, they just wanted to give them a break, you know, and so they hired them, and they were all really good workers. A good friend of mine, she worked there alongside me, and then there was another girl, Susan Monker, from across the lake. She lived across the lake. They hired her. Yeah, they did hire. Particularly young girls. At that time, it was mostly girls that did this type of work, you know. Now it's both.
Side of that are very quick.
That's right. That's straight, very true, yeah, yeah. So, no, it was,
Any question I had is when, because originally it was just the long building, and then they put the one wing out. And I don't know whether it was Bill or Sherry's husband, because I knew the father-in-law of the next owner, and I don't know whether he's the one that put this, so that it looked like a horseshoe in the end.
I think it was Bill.
Yeah.
I think it was him that built, that changed it.
The two wings on,
Yes,
and then
yeah,
Sherry's husband bought it after
Yeah.
that when Bill
Yeah.
sold it.
and now, of course, it looks completely unrecognizable.
They put it right down to the
Yeah.
ground, and they put in a septic tank, treatment plant and all of that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
where it is and everything, because there's no sewers. down
there's no
there.
sewers, no, that's right. Yeah, no, we didn't have anything like that. Yeah.
You mentioned that park program. Year before I went to university, I did that. And it was a good program, but I had many days with over 50 kids. and just
Oh, really?
me.
Oh, were you actually teach?
I was the
You were one of the
that-
supervisors there? Oh, for goodness sakes.
And it was before I went to university, so I was just out
Yeah.
of grade 12. And to give you 50 kids that wanted to do copper work, they
Yeah.
they did paint, I tell you, I did it one summer.
Well,
You went in for a teacher after that. No, well, I'm ready to teach you.
well, you did well. You did well. Because you,
It was really
yeah,
popular
because
program.
it was very popular, you know, and us kids all loved it. Really loved it.
They did. And they brought their friends. Oh, everybody.
Because it was such a good program. We had fun.
Oh, my goodness.
We had so much fun there.
Those
Yeah.
were the days.
Yeah, they sure were. Yeah.
But I think it got so expensive too because they
Yeah, and then they tore down all the building and everything. Yeah,
But
yeah.
also, there was also a problem because there was a man that used to come with a trench coat.
Oh God, I don't want to know.
And that was another problem. That was
Yeah,
another problem.
yeah. Oh, I,
I would just like to add my 2 cents, because I was very fortunate to have eaten many times at Costco.
oh, nice.
And you should be very proud of your father for running, because he
Yeah.
was a fabulous chef.
Yes, he was a fabulous chef. I actually still have his. It's a little hardcover book that is his graduation from culinary school in Copenhagen, where he took his papers. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, it was funny back then because back then, I mean, and I think I could be wrong, but I think it's still like that. You only went to school to grade 8, and after that, it was something called a gymnasium. And so his mother sat him down and said, "You're finished grade 8. What do you want to do?" And he said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, I mean, how many of us know at the age of 13 what we want to do?" And she said, "Okay, you're going to be a chef." That was the end of it. That was sort of the story of his life, how he came to be. And yeah, he was all over. I have a picture here of him at that's at King Arthur's, where he would go around and carve the beef to all the patrons. Yeah, this was a big copper rolling thing with the beef in it, and he would do that. That's my dad in the Parliament buildings. In the kitchen at the Parliament buildings. And this one is, when he was in Copenhagen, when he was growing up, he belonged to what would be very similar to our cadets today here. But he had to wear, he swore that was the hat that caused him to go bald, you know, because they were so hot. I don't know, but yeah. So yes, it was good. It was good. They did well, and you're right. I am very proud of what they accomplished, what they did, because they came here with nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah. Oh, Shay, yeah.
Wonderful restaurant.
Yeah, yeah.
Which we have the daughter sharing.
Oh, really? Oh, is that correct? Really? Yeah, I went there quite a few times too.
Yeah, it was rather interesting because the two restaurants when your dad had it at first, they were not in competition at all.
No,
It was only
they were
lunch.
different.
Yeah, and the original cup pheasant was only lunch
And tea, yeah.
and mom and dad shared us with dinner only.
Okay, yes.
But it's strange the little connections because my son worked at your restaurant.
Oh, really?
Well, actually, it was after your parents.
Yes,
divorced.
yeah,
But
probably.
he worked there for a couple of summers in
Yeah.
the kitchen.
Oh, good for him.
And now he loves cooking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, good. So, yes,
I worked with your brother Renee.
Yes.
City Parks.
Yep.
Did he work there until he retired?
he did. He did. Now, wait a minute. He just told me this the other day that I didn't realize. He did work for Parks, but in the very latter, just before he retired, I think he went to archives, doing something with archives, which he loved. He loved because he loves all this historical stuff. So it's actually this has been good for me because I've been connecting with him quite a bit, and we've had a lot of walks down memory lane, you know, mostly good, some sad, but mostly good, you know. So yeah, it was really good. But yes, he did retire from Parks. Yeah, yeah. So he's been retired for quite a while now, but they still live. He and his wife still live up on Prospect Lake. They live directly across the lake from the lake, or on Prospect Lake Road. Yeah, they've lived there for years now. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Richard, I'd like to take it back a little bit on Prospect Lake,
Yep.
back into the, if we can, back into about mid-40s.
Oh gosh, I wasn't around then,
Well,
but yes.
we had a situation where we would visit a family on Prospect Lake, the Baswick family.
Okay.
And they lived next door to Ken Wright, who was part of the observatory. We used to come down to visit, and there was a boy and his sister. His name was Peter Salmon, and his sister was Enid, and they used to swim in Prospect Lake. And he became quite famous because I think he swam across to across the canal
Oh.
to Port Angeles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
he might have gone to do some Olympic swimming. But
Wow.
it was Bassett family, and so that was in those days there was a float for swimming that had a diving.
In the lake, in Prospect Lake?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
float, a big square thing, probably about 10 or 12 feet wide, and then you climb up a set of stairs and go down a chute on one side.
Fun.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those are some old memories. A water slide.
Yeah, I spent so many days in the lake swimming. I was a real water baby. I said before, I would just constantly, I'd just swim across the lake, or I'd go around the perimeter or whatever and get to people's houses. And my mom used to, you know, we had a gong, which I actually now have, and she would get down and bang it if she wanted me home. And if that didn't work, she'd take a mirror and shine it in the sun and try and get me home. And there were times I just refused to come out of the water, and she would send my dinner on a plank on an inner tube and push it out in the lake. And I would eat, you know, my dinner. I just didn't want to come out of the water. I just loved it. Yeah. So it was a good place for me to grow up. That's for sure.
We actually skated on the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had friends on Echo.
Oh, yes.
And so we skated across to Food McGregor's place.
Oh, yes. With the golf course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the golf course.
Yeah.
So we skated across and we were heading back and I could hear, yeah. I said to Morris, what is that? He says, the lake's starting to crack.
Oh,
Oh.
you didn't have that car that went across to test it.
It's not a car in the center of
Yeah.
the Volkswagen.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was probably about 25, 30 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. We don't get that anymore. There isn't that kind of, you know, and I know people are sort of, some people just will not believe in climate change, but man, there's something changing because we just don't get that like we used to get, that all that snow and ice.
We're
for
not
sure.
nervy to do that anymore.
No, well, true.
We'll lose that.
Yeah, that's true. How did we ever make it without helmets and knee pads and all the rest of it? Yeah, I don't know.
Survive.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyway, that's my story, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.